Hello and welcome to Manga 96, and today we have the review of One Piece chapter 1027 titled An Unbelievable Disaster. In this chapter we saw the beginning of two masks breaking, one figuratively and one literal. The more important one out of the two is Kaido's mask of an unbeatable monster, where for the first time we see that even he has his limits and that he has started to reach them. It only took 30 or something chapters of him fighting non-stop a dozen characters who are on commander level or above while simultaneously moving an island in the air to reach the point of Kaido running out of gas, and after this Luffy's victory does now seem to be happening in the near future. The second mask that started to break in this chapter is that of King, where we saw a glimpse of what the Lunarians actually look like. Now let's save all that for later and start at the beginning of this week's chapter. On the cover this week we have the Pirate King himself, Gold D. Roger, playing a prank on a lion and then running away from it after being found out, while Little Shanks and Buggy are crying on a tree. Moving on into the contents of this week's chapter, we start with Neko after he defeated Perospero. He is joined by Carrot, Wanda and some other minks led by Sicilian, with them celebrating his victory and finally avenging Pedro. Speaking of avenging Pedro, Perospero is most definitely alive, just unconscious, so if they really have such a big grudge against him, now is the perfect time to end him and truly avenge Pedro. But let's be honest, the chances for that are even lower than that of Onigashima falling on the flower capital and killing everyone there, which at this point I wouldn't mind in the least if it actually did happen. Moving on from ideas that have the same chances of happening as winning the lottery. After Neko wonders why the cloud split in the first place, we get an inner monologue of Yamato who recalls what she read in Oden's logbook about the clashes between Roger and Whitebeard and that they are similar with what she had now witnessed between Luffy and Kaido. We also see that Luffy's and Kaido's clash not only did it split the sky, but it also shook the entirety of Onigashima, where there is now rubble falling all over the place. In the review for chapter 1025, I did say that Yamato had won the Thunder Bagua clash, with Kaido bleeding a little and her managing to block with her ability. But as we learned in this chapter, that wasn't the case, as she started to bleed from her head and falls on her knees, showing that her mirror ability didn't actually block the attack, it just delayed its effect. With Yamato so worn out, Luffy tells her that she should go and help the sniveling snake to stop Onigashima, with Momo looking like a kid that is afraid of jumping into the cold water. Yamato immediately agrees and takes Luffy's place on the head of Momo, but things don't go as planned as Kaido tries to stop the two of them. So first Yamato has to block Kaido's attack before Luffy starts to choke Kaido. This scene does remind me of rom-coms, with a jealous girl pulling her boyfriend or the guy she likes from flirting with other girls. The same is happening here, where Luffy can't stand that Kaido is ignoring him and going after Yamato and Momo, so he needs to pull him back to remind him that he is still here. Luffy and Yamato have a brief interaction where Yamato leaves everything to Luffy. This brief scene did seem like it is between Luffy and any other Straw Hat, with a level of understanding that Yamato and Luffy displayed in this scene. It does seem like Oda is further hammering in the fact that Yamato will join the crew at the end of the arc. After that, Momo finally jumps off the cliff and proceeds to have a brief free fall before Yamato can explain how to use a dragon's power to Momo. He manages for the first time to consciously create the flame clouds, but Momo's joy of managing to fly for the first time freely doesn't last long, as a lot of rubble is falling down from Onigashima. Yamato deduces that the reason for Onigashima to crumble so much is that Kaido's flame clouds are weakening, so they can't support the whole island and gravity is started to do its job. What this tells us is that Kaido is hitting his limit, and by the looks of the island he will hit it rather quick, and with that his defeat is also around the corner. Oda said in an interview a couple of years ago, even before Wano started, that he didn't know how Luffy would beat Kaido as he doesn't believe that the readers would buy Luffy beating Kaido just because his punches are strong. So the way he handled this Kaido problem is good, and I'm satisfied with the road that Oda took to get to this point, where it is totally believable that Luffy will beat Kaido. As it took 30 or so chapters of Kaido fighting dozens of characters that are commander level or above, while moving an island throughout the air, with Luffy getting a power-up, which is completely reasonable in my opinion, and some rest and food, while Kaido didn't get anything, which brought us to this chapter where Kaido finally starts to show that he also has his limits, and with him approaching them, it will be completely reasonable for Luffy to beat him, with Kaido still remaining an absolute monster despite this loss. With the situation getting worse by the second, Momo tries to push Onigashima, but that went well, as you would expect, with Yamato trying to calm Momo down and explaining to him what is the only real option that they have in stopping Onigashima, and that's are Momo's own flame clouds that he needs to use to stop Onigashima. Momo, as per usual, doesn't think that he has it in him to do something like that, but he will need to, as Yamato explains that Onigashima is essentially one giant bomb, as it is stored to the brim with gunpowder and weapons, and if it were to uncontrollably fall, it would cause a massive explosion that would obliterate the flower capital. The first thought that Momo once again has is an easy way out by telling this to Luffy, on which Yamato smacks him over the head to man up and leave Luffy alone, as he doesn't need any more things to worry about, as fighting Kaido one-on-one is hard in of itself. So it is to Momo to stop Onigashima to fall with his own flame clouds, which would show that in terms of Delphoid powers, Vegapunk's creation is on the same level of strength as the real deal. After establishing what Momo and Yamato need to do to stop Onigashima, with Luffy finally having Kaido all for himself, we move back to the life lore where King is indiscriminately attacking everyone around him. The reason for this outburst of anger is because Zoro managed to break a bit of King's mask in their fight. Apparently, King really doesn't like to show his face to others, as the father claimed that no one has ever seen King without his mask. On this, I must call bullshit, as Kaido definitely knows how King looks, considering that King joined him in the first place because he respected him, and I would assume that Queen and Jack know how he looks like beneath the mask as well. After getting this little exposition on King's problem on showing his face, we see that he is in his hybrid form. After Black Maria and Jack, I would assume that this hybrid form of King's is also because of a drug to manipulate the form, as only his hands turned into wings with the rest of his body remaining normal. While King is attacking everyone, he manages to send Zoro flying into the hallway, and it is only thanks to Frankie who manages to catch Zoro before he flies somewhere farther away, and then we would have a problem on our hands on how would Zoro find his way back. Thankfully, Frankie is here to save the day, and he offers his help to tag team King, but Zoro declines the offer before King comes rushing in again, with Zoro trying to counter. In the clash, Zoro manages to damage King's mask even further, with King sending Zoro flying again. Having his mask damaged further infuriates King even more, who once again attacks the helpless Zoro in the air, pushing him down from Onigashima. However, Zoro is not unconscious as Luffy was when Kaido made a home run with him, so he manages to use an attack, and with the force that attack generates, he propels himself back to Onigashima, landing right next to King. We started this with only King being pissed off, but after King trying to kill Zoro by kicking him down from Onigashima, Zoro is also pissed off as he can't accept a death by falling from a flying island. The only death in battle that he can accept is that by his opponents cutting him down. So now we have two guys who are pissed off at each other fighting on the edge of a flying island. This fight is bound to get more entertaining. For the last panel of the chapter, we see King with his damaged mask, where we see a bit on how a Lunarian looks like. So going off of what we see, the Lunarians are a race that has a darker skin color, reminiscing of dark elves, with lighter hair color. I would assume that it will be white or blonde hair, and then black wings and the ability to create fire. If we are going by the logic that the Lunarians are indeed from a moon as their names would suggest, it surely isn't from the same moon as the Skypians, Shandians and Bricans, as the Lunarians are so much different than the other three races that I don't see them being related in any way. The little that we saw of King in this chapter does make it seem that the Lunarians could be some sort of fallen angels who potentially inhabited the moon closest to the one where the Skypians, Shandians and Bricans originate from. And maybe, going by the aesthetic, the Lunarians could have been hostile to the other races that look like angels. One other notable thing is that it seems like King has a tattoo on his left eye reminiscent of dragon. This doesn't have to mean anything, but considering that there aren't many characters to have tattoos on their faces, it could indicate that there is a connection there. For what exactly, it's hard to say at this point, but the first thing that would come to mind is that Luffy is part Lunarian, which would help to explain his fire-based attacks. But this is a rabbit hole that isn't meant for this video, so let's end it here. All in all, this was a solid chapter of One Piece, with Kaido finally starting to show weakness and a path to Luffy's victory is starting to emerge. Momo and Yamato are on a mission to stop Onigashima with a grudge match starting between Zoro and King. And that will be all for this video. If you like this video, leave a like, leave your thoughts in the comments below, or subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content as well as other manga content, and until next time, take care.